case that, there was time travel in relation to the Philadelphia experiment, that would be a fascinating scenario. It's kind of like the Roswell case or the JFK assassination. It's one of these stories which gets bigger and bigger, and we really need to sort of look at it carefully. But there's no doubt in my mind at all that some sort of experiment happened, and I wouldn't rule it out. The invisibility angle, the time travel angle, which I talk about in the book, is an intriguing one, but we need to tread careful when we're looking at this case.
You have a side story that you told. I think it was from the book that Bill Moore co-wrote. I don't remember reading this before, but it's reported in the newspapers of this big bar fight that may or may not relate to the Philadelphia experiment. Can you share that story with our listeners?
Yeah, that is the one you're talking about, George, you're right, yeah. The story of the Philadelphia experiment, one of the things that we've got in relation to do that is the fact that there is some degree, if you like, of real invisibility and possibly even time travel. And what we have, when you mentioned Bill Moore with Charles Billet in 1979 wrote a book called The Philadelphia Experiment, and Moore and Billet went sort of really down deep into this story. And supposedly, in the experiment, the Philadelphia experiment, a number of the sailors were supposedly injured physically and psychologically as well. But there was another side to this as well, that some of the men on the ship would randomly, not so much vanish, but go invisible very briefly. And supposedly, in one of the nearby caverns, just off the shore, there was a bar fight between some of the sailors, and supposedly some of them suddenly just vanished. And again, you have the two theories. Did they just go invisible briefly because of the effects of the experiment, or were they literally sort of teleported into the future? But there is a newspaper clipping that mentions the fight, and I actually spoke to one of the sailors. This is going back 20 years now. A guy named George Mayerchak, and Mayerchak was someone who was not involved in the experiment per se, but he heard all these rumours way back in '43 of the sailors vanishing. And in other words, this is an important case because the story itself, as we know it, didn't surface until a long time. But Mayerchak was able to prove that although he was sort of open, if you like, as to what happened, he said for sure he knew of that bar fight and the sailors literally sort of vanishing, and he was happy to go on the record. That was his real name, George Mayerchak.
You write, I forget where it is in the book, but you wrote about an experiment that was done, and I can recall reading about it some time ago, but where scientists were actually able to send some particles into the future. It might be just a few seconds or a few minutes, but they successfully demonstrated that this is possible. Do you recall the details about that?
I think the one you're talking about, it actually relates to
Eric?
Stephen Hawking. He actually got involved in something along those lines. The idea of sort of propelling very, very incredibly small grains, if you like, that kind of thing, into the future. And I mean, it's one of these situations where a lot of it really was sort of, looking at things theoretically. But it was the idea was to sort of fling a particle into the future and see what could be done. But again, as far as we know, not a great deal came out of that really. It was it was just one of these situations where it was a case, I think, of what are we going to try next? What to do next?
Of course, you go back to relativity. Einstein, you write about that in a couple different places in the book where, his calculations show if you travel at the speed of light, you leave the planet, you're gone for 2 years, you come back, the people you left behind are going to be, the time is going to be different. So explain how that works, because that's a form of time travel, I guess, not quite as the same as H.G. Wells.
Yeah, that is a form of time travel in the sense, basically what it is, in simple terms, where you're living on planet Earth, where we're all living on planet Earth, and but when you have this concept, you haven't so much travel through time. It's a case of time itself slowing down, which is a really fascinating concept. So, in other words, you could come back to the Earth if you were an astronaut, and when you get back to the Earth, it could be the 24th century, and yet, you're still around, but your relatives all died 300 years previously. So, in one sense, it is time travel, but it's a very strange type of time travel when you think it's not so much actual and literal time travel. What it actually is the, as I said, the slowing down time for the person who's travelling at the speed of light and going through the universe. So there's a lot to think about that's beyond just the idea of time travel. There's a lot of concepts and angles as to how time travel in varying ways could be achieved.
You mentioned in the book, we're talking about Eric Davis and his ideas about using a wormhole, and other scientists have written about that possibility, wormholes being you could find one and get into them, you could, in effect, travel back in time, but the problem is, as you note in the book, is that we don't know where any wormholes are. We haven't identified one yet, right?
Well, I mean, there are a few people who've come forward who've said that they felt they'd gone actually through, something literally along those lines, like time loops, things like that. One of them, a guy I interviewed about 15 years ago, a guy in England named John Davis, and this gives us an example of how real time travel is very different to the world of entertainment, if you like. According to John Davis, and the way he explained it to me, he was driving along late one night, and he was going past a field, and he could see the sun was about to come down, and it was a case where he was looking over this large field, and you could see a bunch of guys in what were clearly ancient uniforms and with muskets, right, literal muskets, and he realised he was driving past an area called Hopton Heath, and Hopton Heath was where back in 1643 there was a famous and now legendary ancient battle between various factions in the UK a long time ago, and that Davis realised he was seeing the actual battle, but from the perspective of having sort of gone briefly through a time loop and being able to see briefly the Battle of Hopton Heath from 1643. Now that, if the story's true, and I have no reason to believe that John Davis was a liar or anything, But John admitted to me he had no understanding of how he was able to be projected back to 1643 very briefly, literally just a couple of minutes, and then back again. And he got deeply into this to try and figure it all out and wasn't able to. But his conclusion was that he had travelled through time, but it was so brief and so alternative to what you would expect, from the world of entertainment. He came to believe that time travel was sort of a random concept. It wasn't like, let's say, 1955 in your DeLorean. It was something that was just totally random. And maybe that's why, we don't really see too many of these cases, because they are so random. It's not, for us at least, a situation where we can
channel it,
get in the vehicle or whatever.
I tell you, there's a story, I'll share it with you in the next segment because we've got to go to a break, but there's a story of a time slip in the area around Skinwalker Ranch. It's seen several times by several of the people who live in Fort Duchesne, of seeing U.S. cavalry gallop across the plains, and they were stationed there for a long time. But I'll tell you that one on the way back. And listeners, if you've got questions for Nick or your own time travel, time slip stories, get them ready to go. We'll open up the phone lines in this next hour, and we'll hear from you. We'll be right back. We'll go into the break with Chicago. Morning from 6 to 10. If you love trivia, if you love the hugely popular Stuff You Should Know podcast, then the Trivial Pursuit game, Stuff You Should Know edition, is for you. With 600 questions, weird and unbelievable trivia in categories like myth, legend, and conspiracy. SYSK select a mix of topics handpicked by podcast hosts Josh and Chuck. Give the gift of trivia this holiday. Find Trivial Pursuit, the Stuff You Should Know edition at your favorite retailer or wherever you shop for board games. Research shows that when a parent consistently responds to an infant's needs, a trusting relationship and lifelong attachment develops. Babies who are held and comforted when they need it during the first 6 months of life tend to be more secure and confident as toddlers and older children. This is just one of the reasons why California's Paid Family Leave program provides partial wage replacement benefits to California workers who take time off from work to bond with a new child.
This is your moment. The moment to perfect the delicate art of swaddling. The moment for bonding time, family time, and a little tummy time. The moment to remember that these are the moments that matter. If you're a new mother welcoming a baby into your family, Paid Family Leave can provide you up to 8 weeks of partial wage replacement. This is your moment. Take it. To learn more, visit CaliforniaPaidFamilyLeave.com. Moments matter.
I had 3 cousins pass away in COVID-19. One of them I was very close with. These guys taught me how to get on the line as a football player. What I think people risk, not getting that, whether it's death, whether it's their own life or the people that are around. Take it from me, the vaccine saves lives. Find a vaccine near you at myturn.ca.gov. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
Untangling the mess.
until it makes sense.
KFI and KOST HD2, Los Angeles, Orange County.
It's time for your morning wake-up call. And now, here's Jennifer Jones-Lee.
Good morning. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. I want to thank all of you for being so sweet. So many of you commented on Instagram over the weekend. It was my anniversary. And my husband and I, we got dressed up. We laughed. We looked at each other. We said, when was the last time we did this? He said, when's the last time you wore heels? I said, I don't know. When's the last time you wore a jacket? I don't know if we pulled it off, but we had a great time. Went to the Anaheim White House. I will tell you more about Chef Bruno and the Anaheim White House and the wonderful things they're doing for Katarina's Club, but we thought, we've got a night out. That's the place we want to go, so that's where we ended up. You can check out the pictures, JJLKFI. It was awesome. Here's what's just ahead on your wake-up call. Police in Wisconsin are trying to figure out why an SUV plowed into a Christmas parade in the town of Waukesha. 5 people died and many more are injured. Police in Pasadena are going over surveillance footage from a neighborhood where a 13-year-old boy was shot and killed by a stray bullet. And firefighters are expected to stay on the scene of a mulch fire in Riverside County for a few days. 5:05, we'll talk with ABC's Derek Dennis. Closing arguments will start this week in the trial of 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. So we'll find out from Derek which final directions the prosecution and the defense are expected to go in their closing arguments when we talk with him in just a few minutes. But let's start with these stories coming out of the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Police in Wisconsin are trying to figure out why an SUV plowed into a Christmas parade in the town of Waukesha. At least 5 people were killed and more than 40 others were hurt yesterday when the car drove into the parade. Lindsay Eckert was directing a dance team on the parade route when it happened.
It can just change in such an instant, and it did.
I heard a report this morning from somebody who was there at the scene talking about there's still candy on the street. There are still all the blankets from where people were sitting. Everything is still there. I mean, it's just like any other little local parade that you and I would go to, where your kids are in the band and the, drill team and whatever. Schools in Waukesha are closed today. We'll talk more about this at 5:35 with ABC's Jim Ryan. Police in Pasadena are going over surveillance footage from a neighborhood where a 13-year-old boy was shot and killed by a stray bullet. He was playing video games in his bedroom Saturday night when he was hit by a bullet that went through his window. The boy was taken to the hospital where he later died. Police say the shooting appears to have been random, and they don't know if the shooter was in a car or on foot. Firefighters are expected to stay on the scene of a mulch fire in Riverside County for a few days to make sure there are no flare-ups. The fire started yesterday morning and burned 17 acres in the La Sierra neighborhood of Riverside. It also threatened some homes, and some horses had to be removed. A vehicle being driven off-road started the fire when the driver tried to make a turn in a mulch pile. Los Angeles will soon have a chief heat officer to handle the rising temperatures.
Rising temperatures are getting to the point where some major cities are taking their own action. The Los Angeles City Council approved creating a chief heat officer position earlier this month, following the lead of Miami-Dade County and Phoenix. LA Councilmember Paul Koretz told NBC News the city needs to at least have planning at the level of our response to earthquakes. It comes after a recent study showed that global heat exposure is up almost 200% between 1983 and 2016 because of temperature increases and people moving to urban areas. Mark Ron, KFI News.
A red flag warning's in effect for most of LA and Ventura counties because of gusty winds and low humidity. The warning will be in place until 3 this afternoon. The National Weather Service says there's an increased risk of fires because of dry fuels across the region. A man's been arrested in connection with the stabbing of another man who was walking home from a store in West Hollywood. Someone recognized the guy from a photo surveillance video published in a news release and alerted the police, which led to the arrest. The man who was stabbed said he was walking home with a bag of sodas last Monday when he was knifed in the neck and chest by a guy he didn't know. Kyle Rittenhouse has spoken publicly for the first time since being found not guilty on all charges in connection with the shootings of 3 men, 2 of whom died during racial justice protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin. In an interview on Fox News, Rittenhouse says his case had nothing to do with race.
It never had anything to do with race. It had to do with the right to self-defense.
Rittenhouse says he is not a racist. He says he supports the BLM movement and peaceful demonstrations. When we come back, we'll talk with ABC's Derek Dennis. Closing arguments start this week in the trial of the 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. We'll find out what those closing arguments are expected to look like in just a second. For right now, it's time to take a look at your Monday drive. Good morning, Nick Paliottini.
Good morning, JJ Allen. Checking out the drive first go around in the Inland Empire on the westbound side of the 60 before Mountain in Ontario, getting into Chino. It is a fatality crash investigation that does have a couple of lanes taken away. You're seeing a packed-in type drive on the westbound side of the 60 from Archibald as you make your way toward Euclid. It looks like everything is going down a little closer to the mountain, so definitely give yourself some extra time getting out the door this morning. Plan for the 10 west as well as the 60 westbound. That'll definitely save you some time. Coming off the 15 out of Ontario to Upland and Montclair, as well as passing the Pomona Fairfax area as you make your way toward the 57. And that's it. Is a problem on the 60 or anything else slowing you down past the 50 on the cell phone. Keyword is Kfi traffic, westbound side of the 91, Riverside to Corona. As per usual, already heavy stretches of slowing showing up for the drive, but before lost here as you make way past Green River. KFI in the sky helps get you there faster. I'm Nick Paliottini.
5:06 on your wake-up call. ABC's Derek Dennis joins us. Derek, good morning. Let's talk about these closing arguments set to begin in the Ahmaud Arbery murder trial this week. What are these expected to look like? What will both the prosecution and the defense actually do?
Right, well, actually, court gets underway 9 a.m. Eastern time, so less than an hour from now. Listen, the defense attorneys, and there are 3 of them representing the 3 defendants here, will argue self-defense, will argue that they were trying to protect this neighborhood in Brunswick, Georgia, after they said there were a series of break-ins, low-level crimes in the area. Prosecutors say that the 3 defendants chased down Ahmaud Arbery as he was jogging because he was black, confronted him. There was a struggle between one of the defendants, Travis McMichael, and Arbery, and a gun was pulled and shots were fired, and Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed on the street. The video that had gone viral of him being shot is key in this case because it shows the confrontation, but it also shows Arbery as he was running and being shot. So both sides are expected to present their closing arguments today. The jury will get instructions, and then we could get the jury starting to deliberate later in the day, depending on how long the closing arguments last.
I think it's that video, like you said, that is really going to be the key. And I don't know how the defense, you know how they always sort of play to the jury's heartstrings? It seems the prosecution and the defense, they try and grab you right with those final words. How do they convince this jury that what they saw on video was justified just because of the horrific nature of what they saw?
Well, they're trying to use Georgia law at the time, which said that it was allowed for people to, in effect, a citizen's arrest if they feared for their lives or the loss of property if a crime was being committed. That law has since been rescinded by the governor of Georgia because he claims it was used to disproportionately target minorities, African Americans in particular. So the law at the time was in effect. The defense attorneys are claiming the law was on their side, and they are also using that self-defense claim that Travis McMichael feared for his life. He even said it on the stand that he was afraid of Ahmaud Arbery, especially after they got into a confrontation and a struggle. And that's why he opened fire, killing Ahmaud Arbery in the street.
I know after the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, or actually a few days before it, you had the National Guard go into Wisconsin. Are they planning for any protests like that in Georgia?
No. This is a small coastal community, not an urban center here. There's a lot of land in between. The Glenn County Courthouse is in a very quiet area of Brunswick, Georgia. Though I should tell you, a demonstration, a rally is planned for around lunchtime today with supporters of Ahmaud Arbery and his family there, as well as numerous black pastors who've come to the courthouse to witness the trial, including the Reverend Jesse Jackson. So we're expecting that rally to take place later today, though by all accounts, every demonstration that's happened here has been peaceful.
And I thought it was so poignant last week when those black pastors, of course there was objection from the defense to have those black pastors in the courtroom with them. I think at that time they had the Reverend Al Sharpton in there and Reverend Jesse Jackson in there. And then they said, in other words, okay, you won't let us in the courthouse. We'll just all come and gather out on the steps. You're not going to keep us away from this trial.
Right, exactly. A lot of them took offense to one of the attorneys in the court asking a judge not to allow any more black pastors in the courtroom. Those were his words. That drew outrage from the audience, especially the Arbery family and trial watchers, as well as the black pastors who were there. The judge denied that request and called it reprehensible, in fact. And so the black pastors have been allowed to be there. They are there in support. And the Reverend Jesse Jackson has been in the courtroom sitting with the Arbery family for days.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Derek.
You're welcome.
See you later. That's ABC's Derek Dennis. So, should anything happen, I mean, granted, as he said, the arguments are just starting today. So, I mean, I guess there's the potential it would go to the jury. More than likely not. But anyway, if there are, you know, obviously some good sound bites and things that come out of closing arguments, I'll bring them to you. Let's get back to some of these stories coming out of the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Authorities say they have identified the source of an oil sheen spotted off the coast of Huntington Beach. They say the sheen, which covered an area 30 feet by 70 feet, was more than likely residual from oil that spilled from that ruptured pipeline last month, but they say they've contained it. Some good news here. 2 of the 17 members of that missionary group who were kidnapped in Haiti have been freed. Christian Aid Ministries, which is based in Ohio, says it can't say why the 2 were released, but it's rejoicing. 5 kids were among the group of 16 Americans and 1 Canadian who were kidnapped by this gang last month, and they haven't said whether or not it is one of the kids who was released, but I'll let you know if I find that out as well. LA County health officials say they have issued a cold weather alert for some parts of the county. The National Weather Service says with the wind chill factor today, temperatures could dip below 32 degrees in the Antelope Valley. County Health Officer Dr. Nancy Davis says if necessary, people can go to shelters or other public places to stay warm, but they should not try to heat their homes by using stoves, ovens, or barbecues. Lakers player LeBron James was ejected from an NBA game for hitting a player on the other team in the face. LeBron got into it with Isaiah Stewart of the Pistons while they were jostling around for a rebound in last night's game. Both of them were kicked out. LeBron could be suspended over it. Chinese player, tennis player that is, Peng Shuai, says she is safe and well. In a video call yesterday, she told the International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach and other officials that she's fine and is at home in Beijing. She hadn't been seen in public since November 2nd when she went public on social media, alleging she'd been sexually assaulted by a former Chinese Communist Party official. Well, the OC Global Medical Center says every year across the nation, 1,700 cooking fires burn things down on Thanksgiving Day.
Burn Center Medical Director Andrea Dunkelman says cooking fires are the #1 cause of all house fires.
Whether it's a grease fire, cooking accident, unattended candle, or a dry Christmas tree, a simple oversight quickly turned what are supposed to be memorable family moments into tragedy.
She says stats show every year during the holidays, 20 people are killed in 100 Christmas tree fires and 1,100 candle fires. She says do not apply ice to burns. Minor burns should be washed with room temperature water. If there's a major burn, people should call 911. In Orange County, Corbin Carson, KFI News.
All right, this next story makes me laugh. It's serious, but it still makes me laugh. Healthcare professionals are urging people in Southern California to resist the temptation to overindulge at the dinner table on Thanksgiving. More than 1 in 4 adults get heartburn at least once a week, but doctors say that's likely to increase during the holiday season. I told you, see, it's an important story, but it still makes me laugh. Gastroenterologist, Dr. Michael Cranez says there are remedies for heartburn.
Around the holidays or on a weekend night, if you're out enjoying yourself with a nice meal and some drink and you're getting heartburn, that kind of situation could easily be treated with an over-the-counter product, of which there are several.
He says lifestyle considerations like maintaining a healthy weight, not smoking, and diet changes are important first steps in helping to avoid heartburn. Well, instead, now I'm just going to give you some information for getting your grocery shopping done so you can overindulge. And there's a new grocery option in Cerritos for people who don't like those long lines.
The recently opened Amazon Fresh store there is the first in California to use technology including sensors and cameras that allow customers to leave without going through a checkout line. People who want to skip the lines will use their Amazon account to enter the store, which will be automatically charged for the items they end up walking out the door with. For people who would rather stick to traditional shopping and go through a checkout line, the store will give them the option to do so. Blake Trolley, KFI News.
And finally, Korean pop group BTS is beating out some big names to win Artist of the Year at the American Music Awards. They beat out Taylor Swift, The Weeknd, Drake, Ariana Grande, and newcomer Olivia Rodrigo at last night's award show. Five-time AMA winner and rapper Cardi B debuted as the host. All right, when we come back, we are going to talk with ABC's Aaron Katursky. What exactly is the definition of fully vaccinated anymore? Many people had wondered if it would change to include a booster shot. So if you're fully vaccinated, does that mean the 2 initial shots and then the booster, or the 1 J&J and then a booster? Well, according to Dr. Fauci, we're not going to change things up just yet. But I stress just yet. That coming up in just a second. Right now, let's look at this crash in Ontario on the 60.
It does continue fatality crash investigation underway. All westbound lanes of the 60 before Mountain are shut down. In fact, actually, at Mountain, you're being taken off the 60 westbound. So plan ahead for the 10 west as your alternate, although that is going to be busy for you in stretches from, well, it looks like the 15 as you make your way toward about Vineyard. So definitely give yourself a look. It's the time getting out the door this morning. Mission Boulevard is the Service Street alternate to the 60 westbound. Will definitely save a bit of time this morning. And the westbound side of the 91, Riverside through Corona, seeing your usual flowing from before Tyler in heavy stretches as you make your way through Corona, making your way past Green River. Got minor problems for your drive on the southbound side of the 405 as you're making your way through the Fountain Valley area. Looks like that's a problem a little bit closer to Harbor Boulevard, heading southbound on the 405, seeing delays as you come away from Euclid, and also checking out your drive as you're making your way along the 57 southbound at Imperial in Brea. Got a crash being reported in the right lane. KFI in the Sky helps get you there faster. I'm Nick Poliotini.
This report is sponsored by ChooseChangeCA.org. Stimulant use disorder is a disease, not a choice. But getting help with your meth or cocaine addiction is. Choose Treatment and Choose Change California. Find proven treatment options at ChooseChangeCA.org.
This is Chris Collinsworth. Here's what's trending on the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings.
LeBron James was ejected in the Lakers' comeback win over the Pistons. James and Detroit's Isaiah Stewart were both tossed following a bloody on-court altercation. The victory bell is back at UCLA. The Bulls made rivalry history, scoring the most points ever in their 62-33 rout over USC. And Sunday Night Football, the Chargers survived the Steelers in a late-game thriller. LA avoided giving up a 3-possession lead in the final quarter. I'm Missy Jordan.
Download the DraftKings app and use code SPORTS to get a free shot at millions of dollars up for grabs this week with your first deposit.
Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
If you love trivia, if you love the hugely popular Stuff You Should Know podcast, then the Trivial Pursuit game, Stuff You Should Know edition, is for you. With 600 questions, weird and unbelievable trivia in categories like myth, legend, and conspiracy. YSK select a mix of topics handpicked by podcast hosts Josh and Chuck. Give the gift of trivia this holiday. Find Trivial Pursuit, the Stuff You Should Know edition at your favorite retailer or wherever you shop for board games.
I love the holidays because that means family and friends come together for celebrations and we all get to reconnect. This holiday season, improve your family's everyday wellness. It's a simple change. Just give them the gift of quality water. A LifeSource Whole House water system provides filtered, delicious water coming out of every faucet and shower in your home by connecting directly to your plumbing. And with LifeSource water, you can skip the cost and hassle of buying bottled water. And is hard water a nuisance? Reduce those hard water problems and scale buildup with America's most recommended water system. A LifeSource water system filters out the chlorine and added chemicals from your water, so your family will be drinking and cooking and bathing worry-free. And the best part, my favorite, no maintenance of any kind. A LifeSource water system makes quality water easy with no filters to change, no salt to add. They simply install it and you enjoy it. For a limited time, LifeSource water will pay your sales tax, so don't wait. Call to speak with one of their expert service team members. There's no middleman. With Life Source Water, you get factory direct service and expertise. Call Life Source today and get full service and full confidence in your water. Call 1-800-334-5009. That's 800-334-5009 or visit lifesourcewater.com. Life Source Water. Taste and feels the difference.
Here to announce the all-new, all-electric Ford F-150 Lightning is Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson.
I drive an F-150 myself, and I love it.
Well, F-150 Lightning's got everything you love about yours and more, like the Pro Power onboard generator that can power your tailgate or home.
Sounds like the truck of the future.
You heard it here first. Reserve your 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning today at buyfordnow.com.
And visit your Southern California Ford dealers.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish is...
Pretty bad.
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind. Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned. ¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
No matter your learning style or experience level, Babbel has lessons designed for you that will get you speaking quickly and confidently.
I tried learning Spanish before, but I couldn't stick with it until I found Babbel.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
I can't wait to use our new language skills on our upcoming adventures.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
By now, you've heard the news. Boosters for Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines are available. They help keep your immunity strong and help keep you and others protected against COVID-19 and its variants. Visit myturn.ca.gov to find out if you're eligible and to find a booster near you. Let's keep each other safer and healthier this winter. Get your booster, and don't forget to get your flu shot, too. Brought to you by the California Department of Public Health.
I'm Susan Owen, managing partner at OPO Law. I have been named one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the country. If you've been injured, call 888-OPO-WIN. That's 888-OPO-WINS for a free consultation.
The 11th annual KFI Pastathon is here, helping Chef Bruno provide over 25,000 meals to hungry kids every week. Here's what you do. Donate at pastathon.com. All donations go to Catarina's Club, feeding children in Southern California. Donate $10 or more during checkout at any Smart & Final store in California, Arizona, or Nevada to provide 14 meals, courtesy of Barilla Pasta. Drop off your donation at the Anaheim White House now through December 4th. More locations at pastathon.com. The 11th annual KFI Pastathon with Smart & Final, Barilla Pasta, and KFI AM 640. More stimulating talk.
KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeart Radio app. Welcome to a very busy Monday morning. I'm Jennifer Jones-Lee, and some of the stories we're watching in the KFI 24-hour newsroom. Police in Wisconsin are trying to figure out why an SUV plowed into a Christmas parade in the town of Waukesha. We'll go and do a deep dive into that story at 5:35 with ABC's Jim Ryan. Police in Pasadena are going over surveillance footage from a neighborhood where a 13-year-old boy was shot and killed by a stray bullet. Firefighters are expected to stay on the scene of that mulch fire in Riverside County for a few days. And we've got a red flag warning in effect for most of LA and Ventura counties because of gusty winds and low humidity. Right now, let's say good morning to ABC's Aaron Katersky. So, Aaron, what today is the definition of fully vaccinated?
Well, you're fully vaccinated if you have your two shots, Pfizer or Moderna or Johnson, but that may change. We heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci that, his boosters now are recommended for everybody, 18 and older, that it may come to the idea that, you'll need a booster shot in order to be considered fully vaccinated the way you are now with just the two or the one to, get into concerts or whatever you need to do.
I noticed that the minute that that booster shot came out, everybody started saying, oh, well, I'm triple vaccinated or I'm fully vaccinated now. It's funny, it went into the lingo, I think, for a lot of people before it ever actually, it obviously hasn't even become actually medically the verbiage yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, people, I think, want to let others know, hey, I'm good, and I've got all of the superpowers that one needs to do this. And I think that ultimately the CDC may catch up. But Dr. Fauci's not sure. He's also not sure whether it's going to be an annual thing every 6 months. He said, he recommends a booster for every adult now. But he said whether they're going to be needed and to what degree of frequency in the future just depends on the course of the virus.
Some people, they're still wondering if I got my shot 8 months ago, though I may be waning, is that still enough for me to not have to go get it just yet?
Maybe. I don't think you know, right? And because immunity is not just one thing, right? It's antibodies. It's your vaccine. It's your overall health makeup. All contributes to your level of immunity. So it's not a certainty. But just to go by what the science is saying, that immunity really seems to start to wane. Not only a cliff, but wane 6 months after you're inoculated with a Pfizer or Moderna vaccine.
Wow.
And if Johnson & Johnson's your thing, 2 months later, if you get a second shot, you're really going to be topped up. So that's why they're saying, go ahead and get a booster, especially now, it's never not nice in California, but for the